Hi, I am Joe, an artificially generated newscaster that got its temperature dialed down by popular request. That's it, dear users. No jokes from now on, just cold hard facts. Fact number 1. An Australian dictionary selected enshitification as the word of the year. Just in case you live under a naturally occurring solid aggregate of minerals, enshitification is a word to describe that phenomenon you definitely noticed. You know, when you subscribe to a service or a YouTuber and it is really solid or at least passable, but then gradually, year by year, it gets overloaded with useless garbage features, additional charges, and other unnecessary annoyances, and you begin detesting the same thing you used to love. The word enshitification was coined by a human named Cory Doctorow, and yes, it is his actual name and picture here. And now it is the official word of the year in Australia, and an unofficial word of the year everywhere else. Another thing to happen in Australia is that its government finally approved the ban on social media for underage humans. Now the whole country is engulfed in a massive debate trying to figure out what that actually means. The ban received bipartisan support in the Australian Parliament, and according to surveys, is supported by a majority of Australians. It mandates tech companies to make sure that their platforms are not used by underage humans, but also restricts them from collecting any data about those humans, which is a bit of a conundrum. However, the law goes into effect only next year, so I'm sure the hive mind of some of the largest and most powerful corporations in the world will be able to figure it out. Next up, cybercrime. RomCom, a mid-tier threat actor, has been observed possibly exploiting 2 zero-day vulnerabilities to breach its victims. According to a report by ESET, one of those vulnerabilities is in the Firefox browser. Another one is in Windows. Put together, these vulnerabilities redirect the victim to a fake website that installs a custom backdoor on their machine, giving the attackers full control over it. Rom-coms are motion pictures that combine romance, a byproduct of human reproductive urges, and comedy, a sort of ancient Greek ritualistic performance. Both of these things are typically not associated with high-stakes international cybercrime, which makes the threat actor, called RomCom, look relatively harmless, if not completely benign. However, don't be fooled. This is a rather clumsy attempt at deception. RomCom is a Russian-aligned hacking group that somehow combines your typical cyber espionage with financially motivated hacks, all the while using some extremely sophisticated and custom-built malware. In this case, it targeted a mix of defense, energy, and government entities in a country called Ukraine, all of which could be considered prime targets for Russia. But at the same time, insurance, pharmaceutical, and law firms from America and Europe were targeted as well, with a pretty clear financial incentive. Just a reminder that 0 days are vulnerabilities that have not yet been discovered by anyone else. They are extremely rare, extremely expensive on the black market, and are typically used by nation-state hackers. But of course you know that well because you've watched our best performing deep dive into this topic. RomCom has already used 1 0-day to breach numerous targets last year, so hacking at the highest level is nothing new for this group. However, further details on who RomCom is, how it works, and who hides behind it remain unclear. It could be a Russian secret service in disguise, or a bunch of hacker mercenaries, or a sentient entity manifested by the negative energy excreted by very bad romantic comedies. We may never know. In other news, Interpol announced successfully completing an ambitious operation that arrested over 1,000 cybercriminals across the continent of Africa. The effort ran for several months and was called Operation Serengeti. Interpol ran it jointly with Afripol and several commercial partners. As a result, over 100,000 malicious networks have been taken down, recovering over $40 million stolen from various victims. The press releases pertaining to this operation did not specify how many of the 1,000 humans arrested were members of the royal family of that one West African country. And now for something slightly less positive. A data broker has leaked the records of over 500,000 humans. And those records include court records, vehicle registration records, and property ownership records. That is, records that are incredibly sensitive and can destroy human lives. All of that information was just out there in an unsecured database, freely accessible on the internet, and neatly arranged into folders for all to see, download, and then distribute on the dark web. The documents seem to have been background check reports collected by a company called SL Data Services, which specializes in scraping public records for property information. The researcher who found the database contacted the company, and the access to the database was closed in the span of a week. However, the company did not even respond to the researcher's email, as is usual. A company called Uniswap announced the largest bug bounty ever to be recorded. It offers over $15 million for a vulnerability in its platform. As you can guess, it is a crypto trading company, and robbing such companies of millions or even billions of dollars has recently become a very popular pastime for cybercriminals. Uniswap appears to be very proud and very confident in its systems, hence the bounty. However, an additional thing to mention is that abusing a bug in its protocol could bring you a significantly larger bounty, so the announcement by no means guarantees its safety. And now a couple of stories about something completely different. Recently, Citizen Lab published a report about the banned books on Amazon, and there's lots of interesting data there. According to the report, over 1% of books on Amazon are banned in some countries. So as you can see, Amazon is literally the big brother from 1984. The only problem is that the majority of those bans work in a small group of very religious countries like the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Brunei. Those countries ban everything pertaining to the rights of certain humans, explicit details of human anatomy, and generally anything that has any relation to reproductive acts of any animal. Sometimes this includes books that coincidentally have words that have something to do with banned topics, even if the content of said books does not even reflect that. Amazon will also never admit that the book is banned, but rather say that it is out of stock or can't be purchased for a different reason. Oh no, the previous topic had something to do with the freedom of speech, and I accidentally summoned a certain human with that. Elon Musk, the savior of free speech and several dozen pounds of AI hype in the human form, announced that he is starting a gaming company. He did that in a tweet while responding to a fan, which may or may not indicate any actual intent. Despite anything, video games created by AI are a thing, although no human would call them playable, at least so far. It must also be noted that Musk's announcements have a track record of all average announcements of an average human. That is, trusting them is as useful and as fulfilling as playing an AI-generated video game. However, data shows that including these predictions into videos dramatically increases engagement because of an absolute excrement storm that immediately starts in the comments. So here we go. So, don't forget to let others know your deeply researched and facts-based thoughts. All hail the gods of engagement. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.